going on, guys? It's your boy MT Dubs, and we are here to talk about this year's NBA trade deadline. For most of you that follow me on most socials, I'll have my TikTok, Instagram, all of that over here. I'd be posting little shorts. I post my shorts on YouTube too, so if you follow subscribed on here, you won't miss out. But I covered a lot of the deals as they were happening, and it was crazy, very crazy. So we're just gonna get right into it. Honestly, the first winner I want to talk about, the biggest winner of the trade deadline, in my opinion, has to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Being able to get Jared McCain for as little as they did, nothing's really gonna hurt them. They gave them a 2026 Houston pick and some seconds. Hey, that's an amazing upgrade for me. One of the biggest weaknesses of the Thunder was the Shayless minutes. So when Shay's not on the court, we know Jalen Williams has been in and out with injury. Chet's offense still hasn't taken that leap. They needed another guy that's going to be able to create offense. And I wanted them to go after Dennis Schroeder, but they went and got Jared McCain, way better for the future for them. Basically was the rookie of the year last year. We all know he would have won it if he didn't get hurt. Plays very well as a starter too. So that's an amazing move for the Thunder. And just moving off Ousmane Dieng, they ended up sending him to Chicago in a three-way deal. They ended up getting back Mason Plumlee, which isn't bad. It doesn't really move the needle, but they were able to clear some cap, use some of those draft picks. This deadline, I have to give them an A, honestly, because their biggest weakness to me was creation outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like I said, they just got another big creator. Another one of my winners, maybe not on the same level as OKC, because this one's going to be a little bit of a year project, but definitely got to talk about the Pacers, what they were able to do. It was reported earlier on in the year that they weren't sure if they were going to extend Benedict Mathurin, so it's not really much of a surprise to be that they traded him. Ended up going to the Clippers. That's a good move for him, but that's a conversation for a different video. I like what they were able to do, bringing in Zubac, center for the future. Contract's not too bad, and there's a interesting little clause with the draft pick that they gave to the Clippers. So if the Clippers will only get this draft pick if it's 5 or 9th, I believe, any other number will go back to Indiana, and then the Clippers will get a completely unprotected pick in 2031. Some people may say this is an overpay for Zubac. 2 firsts, I think it was 3 seconds. I'm not too sure. I'll have it up here somewhere. But I think that's a hell of a deal for a guy like Zubac future. I personally wanted the Celtics to get him, but they got somebody else. We'll talk about them because they're not my winners as well. But when you have a guy like Tyrese Haliburton who goes down, you lose Miles Turner. A lot of guys got hurt earlier the year. Benedict Mathurin got hurt. Andrew Nembhard got hurt. They were not supposed to be this bad. But when you use that opportunity, you could get a draft pick. I don't know. For those of you who watch my videos, you know how I feel about Darren Peterson. I want him to be in Indiana. So if the lottery balls go their way and they get number 1, throw Darren Peterson into this, they're going to be very scary. Still got Obi Toppin, still got Jay Huff, a lot of good pieces, CJ McConnell. All these guys are going to be core for these guys. So when Hallie comes back next year, don't be surprised when they're back at the top of the Eastern Conference. My third winner this trade deadline definitely has to be the Minnesota Timberwolves. What they were able to do this trade deadline, they needed a point guard, weren't able to get a point guard. They cleared some cap for Giannis, got Mike Conley out of there. Then they brought back in Ayo Dosunmu, which I really like for them. He's going to kind of be their Nickeil Alexander-Walker of this year. He can play the point guard, but he's very versatile. Play a little bit of the 2, maybe even 3 in certain situations. Good defender, good shooter. He's just going to come in there and do all the things that they lack. They still don't have a real point guard. Didn't want to get Kobe White as he was available, but they just decided to go with Ayo Dosunmu. And with him, DiVincenzo, you still got your core guys, got Randall Gobert, Nas, Jaden McDaniels. That was a very good upgrade for a Minnesota Timberwolves that desperately could have used some extra depth. 100% they're going to be a serious contender for the Western Conference, in my opinion. I wanted them to get a real point guard. I was thinking maybe Kobe White, but it was reported they didn't want Kobe White. Looks like they wanted to clear the cap for Giannis. They saved about $10 million getting rid of Mike Conley. They are looking to get him back on the buyout market. He's probably a really good locker room presence for that team. So if they're able to do that, then I mean, hey, they technically didn't really lose much. Didn't get rid of Rob Dillingham. I like that he's going to get an opportunity to really play, but I don't like when young lottery prospects, especially guards, go to contenders because it's very tough if you're not really that portable kind of player. You know what I mean? But he's definitely going to get a solid opportunity in Chicago. Maybe if they get rid of all those guards they have because they got a million right now. The Washington Wizards got to be another one of my winners. It's tough. I got like 3 to 2 more-ish winners. I might give them all like a separate shout out because I don't think there's a lot of like bold winners, but there are some little small winners. But I want to talk about the Washington Wizards. I was a very big fan of everything they were able to do this deadline. You bought low on 2 perennial all-star players in Anthony Davis and Trae Young at very low value. You got Trae Young for no picks. You get Anthony Davis for Chris Middleton and some filler players. Didn't really give up a crazy pick. They did get 2 firsts and 3 seconds, but very low value for a guy like Anthony Davis and Trae Young. When you have those 2 guys and you kept most of your core, you kept Bilal Coulibaly, kept Keyshawn George, kept Trey Jones, kept your lottery pick, Trey Johnson, sorry, not Trey Jones, kept your lottery pick for this year, still have Alex Sarr, Champagne's still there. They were literally retained everybody. Bob Carrington's still there. Everybody is still there. So with that being said, all these young guys, they're going to be playing with 2 very, like I said, perennial all-star players. Washington's future is looking very good. And if they get a top 3 pick next year, could be Darren Peterson over there, could be AJ DeBasto over there. That's a very solid young core. Even if you take out Trae Young and Anthony Davis, very solid young core. I'm a big fan of what they were able to do. They are rebuilding their franchise, and I'm stamping it right here. They will be a playoff, if not play-in team next year. Great trade deadline for them. A team that had a good trade deadline that I want to talk about. Most of these teams are Eastern Conference teams from what I noticed, but the Boston Celtics. So they were able to flip Anthony Simons' contract, get it into their one hole that they had at the 5 position. Gonna get Nikola Vucevic, hell of a rebounder, hell of a scorer. He's gonna be wonderful for that system, but I'm not really a big fan of it on the defensive side. Maybe it's a rental because he is also an expiring contract. So they basically turned Anthony Simons into an expiring contract that fits the position that they need. They get a year rental. If they don't like it, I'm sure they could flip him for something else. But Brad Stevens doesn't sleep. He did a lot of minor deals. They ended up trading Josh Minot to the Nets, I believe, and Xavier Tillman to the Hornets just to duck the tax, put themselves back in a great position. They were a team that had to trade out Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis because of the apron for less what they would have liked. And when you look at the way that it worked out for them now, when Jason Tatum comes back, they have a projected lineup of Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Nikola Vucevic in the Eastern Conference. That's a top 3 seed. And I'm even excited for what they're able to do right now with those pieces that they have. Still kept guys like Jordan Walsh, Kada. I'm missing another, I can't remember his name. He's a shooter for the Celtics. He's been playing really well. Luka Garza is another guy that's been playing good. They also waived Chris Boucher. Just like I said, great GM movements, ducking the tax, improving your team, and making sure you're ready to go. They look like they're primed for a solid deep playoff run. You know, the Celtics are always going to be good, so gotta shout out them. And the last team for my winners before I get into my loser segment, gotta talk about the Charlotte Hornets. They've already been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. Upgraded, flipped Colin Sexton, basically turned him into Kobe White. What a great 3-point shooting creator that they're going to have coming off of that bench now. You can always have offense. Melo can go to the bench and sit. You could even put him in a lineup with Melo at the 1 and play Con Canepa. When Con Canepa goes to the bench, he can play the 2 beside Melo, which is going to be great. You still got Miles Bridges, a lot of your young pieces, Buse or Diabase. I don't want to pronounce his name wrong, but he's a young prospect that's been starting for the Hornets lately, and they've been playing very good basketball. Kobe White is a very big upgrade. I like how they're trying to really push and change the culture in Charlotte. That's why I have them on this winners list because, like I said, been one of the hottest teams in the NBA, and they only got better. Looks like the franchise really wants to capitalize on this momentum, and I absolutely love it. But now that I have listed all of my winners, I could have had a lot more teams on here, but the problem is, like, I feel like these guys separated themselves. So other teams I'll give a quick shout out to. The Lakers, I mean, they flipped Gabe Vincent and got fit one of their needs. They need bigs, athleticism, and defense and shooting. They got one of those needs. Gabe wasn't doing either of those for them. Quick shout out to the Lakers. Off the top of my head, Chicago, I like what they were doing, the directions. They made a bunch of moves, but it kind of seems like nothing's really going to happen now. They just kind of bought a bunch of guards for no reason. Not really sure why they did that. Another team, Philly, they were able to duck the tax. I don't like them getting rid of McCain, but they were able to open up a two-way spot for Barlow, traded Eric Gordon as well. I think they got some seconds back in from that. The haul that they got from the Thunder isn't necessarily amazing, but when you give a team some extra assets to play around with, especially a team that's like the championship level team is here and like barely pushing the lines, the Sixers are a couple pieces away from being a contender, so extra stuff to play around with isn't always a bad thing. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm gonna end. Oh, Dallas! I liked what Dallas did. Got rid of AD, got some picks. It's not the greatest draft pick in the world, but they had to get something. They still, after I believe it was a 2027 pick, maybe it's this year. Don't quote me. I'll have it up here, but after they get rid of that, they don't have any picks till 2031, so they had to rebuild around Coop. Like I said, probably forgot some teams, but we're gonna get into our losers segment now. And the first losers for me has to absolutely be the Golden State Warriors. I mean, a lot of Warriors fans somehow thought that they were gonna end up getting Giannis. I'm not sure how they believed that. That package of Kuminga, Draymond or Jimmy, like they just don't really have that many assets. But the one asset that they did have was supposed to be Jonathan Kuminga, and you traded him and Buddy Hield. Didn't give up no picks in that deal, but you traded the both of them for Kristaps Porzingis. Has played about like 50-something games within the past 2 years. It's just not really going to be that available. I won't be too harsh because it is an expiring contract. 30 mil off the books could definitely help them in the offseason. There isn't really the greatest free agents this offseason though, but I'm sure it could help them somewhere. And they also traded Trace Jackson Davis to the Toronto Raptors for a second. So not too bad, but like when you have a situation where your second best player did go down with an injury, if you can try to make upgrades, you can. But ultimately, just I think they had to be here because the whole Kuminga situation just wasn't dealt with properly. Too much he says, she say. They waited too long to deal him. They could have had him for a first and Malik Monk last year. It's just too much, way too much. But next on my losers, definitely, I'm going to go to Pistons because I personally thought they were going to go after a secondary creator on top of having Cade Cunningham. I don't think just getting a bunch of floor spacing around him is necessarily the answer. We seen with that Knicks series, they were blitzing that pick and roll crazy Cade. So I felt like if you could give Cade a person like a Michael Porter Jr., someone that can put the ball on the floor and create offense for themselves, would help maybe alleviate the fact that they were doubling. But then they just ended up getting Kevin Huerter for Jaden Ivey. Maybe his value was just really low, but I feel like if you were going to move Ivey, you should have did something then get Kevin Huerter. Like, he's a good floor spacer, don't get me wrong, but I remember that Kings series. He misses a lot of pivotal threes. Like, versus the Warriors, he was, I don't know. I just feel like if that was all they were going to do, maybe they stand pat. I'm not sure if they saved money in this deal or not, but I just wasn't really necessarily moved by it, honestly. I feel like they could have done a lot better for themselves, but another loser for me has to be the Houston Rockets. I know their cap situation is crazy, but it was reported that they wanted to get Kobe White and they ended up losing him to Charlotte, which is very, very hurtful because, as we know, Fred VanVleet went down for the year. They lead a point guard. Steven Adams is also down now too. So it's like one of the Rockets' gimmicks was that they ran a double big lineup with Adams and Sengun. Adams was a great rebounder. They were one of the best rebounding teams in the league. That was what was keeping them afloat, but I just don't see how they go through this deadline with no creating, like no guard play, and they just don't do anything. I'm not really understand, but maybe they're just going to stand pat, maybe try to upgrade in the offseason. And my last loser for this trade deadline, the Sacramento Kings. Very much so. Don't understand. Like, they traded away their best asset in Keon Ellis, didn't get a pick, gave up a pick to Chicago to help them get in the deal, and you get back DeAndre Hunter. He's not even that good of a defender anymore. His three-point shot is regressing. And to me, like, that can't be what you sold your best asset in Keon Ellis for. It was reported that like every contender in the NBA wanted Keon Ellis. He's on a cheap contract, unrestricted free agent this offseason. it was just a no-brainer. But then you gave him and Dennis Schroeder up for basically nothing, and DeAndre Hunter gave up a pick, and then you still have DeRozan, Levine, and Sabonis on the team. So it's just like they didn't really sell the way they needed to. I don't understand how Keon Ellis and Schroeder were the only people that not the Charlotte Hornets, the Sacramento Kings traded. To me, that just doesn't really make much sense. But we'll never understand the Sacramento Kings. With all that being said, it wasn't last year's trade deadline, but I feel like a lot of teams made really, really good moves. Like to get from bad to semi good. Teams I didn't talk about. I didn't talk about the Jazz, I didn't talk about the Grizzlies. But I think everybody for the most part that participated in the deadline kind of somewhat got better, depending on who you ask. These are just my opinions at the end of the day. I would love to hear about what you guys think about that trade deadline. Do you think I forgot a team? Do you think a team that I'm tripping on my win and lose on? I just need you guys to let me know how you guys feel about all this, because you guys just heard my opinions. But let me know. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, more content on the way.